Yeah, that music is funky.
It was always real jamming. I just thought the weapons and pixel art was so wild.
It really does flow all well together, but I forgot how much chaos is going on in these games.
Definitely feels different to watch than to play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to fix the screen tearing, unfortunately, but yeah, I don't think there's one individual aspect. I think it's just comes down to game feel is why I like it.
Yeah, definitely. Your evasive maneuvers are pretty spot on.
Is that when I flexed on the tank a little and just sat there? Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, those didn't touch me. Oh. So that's the game I was looking for when I went to that old decrepit one at Gulf Mill Mall.
Mm-hmm.
We were still working in Glenview at that point. You remember?
Yeah.
I'm curious as to when you were last at an arcade as well. But first, welcome back to Raised by the 90s. I'm Peter Z, here with
Tobias Freeze. Tobias is my full name.
Toby. What's been up this week?
So I bought a puppy.
Oh my gosh.
A Yorkshire Terrier.
That's awesome. So a little dude?
Very little, yeah, but he's feisty.
It is a he.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. What is his name?
Sage. Sage.
Oh.
Yeah, we decided not to change his name from where we got him from.
Did you say how old he is?
Right now, he's 3 months. So
3 months.
12
Okay,
weeks.
So do you think he'll get much bigger?
I would say he's probably around 2 pounds right now. He's going to hit 4 to 7. So hopefully he beefs up a little bit, you know, but
Yeah.
he's still going to stay a little guy.
Yeah. Toughen him up a bit, you know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. To be quite honest, I think he could take down whoever he wanted to right now. So, like I said, he's just, he's a little terrorizer already.
Oh, I see the pic. He's so cute. Oh, it's so adorable. I think there'll be a cat in my future. At the moment, I make jewelry and metal shavings, and cats just, you know, they don't.
Yeah. How is the jewelry making going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'll post a picture and a link on our Twitter and in the YouTube video. It's pretty unique. You're going to want to buy it. But anyways, this week we are going to be talking about the arcade experience. Why we liked them, why we miss them, our favorite games, and just general discussion. I guess my week was pretty good as well. I got down on some Captain Crunch, and I think the captain needs to be court-martialed because it's true. It does hurt your mouth. That shit cuts up your mouth, and it took me back in a way I didn't enjoy.
Nothing going on.
I'm more excited to talk about the arcade. I spent a good amount of time playing some arcade games because of preparation for this.
I played none. I didn't even think to.
I just had to. I had the overwhelming desire, so I indulged. I have the feeling replay in Golf Mill's gone. But when was the last time you were at one, Toby?
To be honest, it was not that long ago. I want to say maybe about 3 or 4 years. We have a couple of arcades here called Nickelcade.
Ooh, that sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah, they really focus on just, you know, obviously getting your bang for your buck. So $20 pretty much guarantees a whole night of fun. So
yeah,
but they're not really a traditional arcade. I mean, it's definitely more in that vein of, you know, Chuck E. Cheese with pizza and stuff like that. But
well, I'm curious to hear more about that. And I guess besides ones like those, arcades are basically a thing of the past.
All but dead.
When I looked into it, it seems like there was a small resurgence in popularity when we were young, only for consoles to come along and pull the rug out from under the arcade industry.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
I think there was a lot of those classic games that came out early in the 80s. And then during our time period, we started to see the Street Fighters and Mortal Kombats and things like that really reinvigorate the arcade scene.
mm-hmm. What do you think happened to all of the arcade cabinets after these arcades went out of business?
I have to imagine that a lot of collectors picked them up and they got passed around from place to place for a while. There were those small remnants that held on after the arcade was gone, and we'll touch on that too, like bowling alleys and pizza parlors, hotels. I have heard that some of them had a component that's prone to failure. Maybe this is only specific to one cabinet, but once that goes, the board is done. So at this point, I bet a lot of them have bit the dust. What do you think?
I don't know. I always thought they just ended up in a landfill somewhere, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know a lot of what you said, pizza parlors, stuff like that. You know, they probably picked some up, but there was a lot of games out there.
Well, I mean, in the near future after the decline, that was my speculation, and bit the dust could be that pretty much means in a landfill, I guess. You know, once those are done, yes, trashed. There are some real, I'll say, enthusiastic collectors of arcade cabinets.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen the cartridge, so to speak, the PCB inside an arcade cabinet?
I actually haven't. I don't think I've ever seen the inside of an arcade cabinet.
Oh, I saw one and it looked like a cartridge to me because there was nothing for scale. And then I saw a guy holding it and it's like the size of a textbook, bigger, and probably weighs
really?
just as much, if not more. Yeah, they're big. It was cool though. It was like light blue. It was pretty sweet.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I don't know how many are crossovers, but when you look into the number of games that there were, I have to imagine a lot of them got left behind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen people say like, "Oh, my emulator has 4,000 arcade titles." I'm like, I don't think all of those got left behind because they were bad. There was just a ton of games. That would be interesting to look into.
For sure. Yeah, because you kind of just have your free pick on them.
And that brings me to one fun aspect of the arcade experience, because when you're putting quarters in the machine, there's something at stake then.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It kind of ups the ante. It's not just, you can't just hit restart really quick like in Tony Hawk Pro Skater when you're trying to do a giant combo. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. You're putting your time and money into it, so.
And as a kid, you don't have a way to regularly replace that, if you don't have an allowance.
Yep.
Or
yeah, it dwindles down fast.
Or say at a party when you have a limited number of tokens. Did you go to a lot of arcade birthday parties, whether or not it was Chuck E. Cheese's, or I know there's some other ones?
I wouldn't say a lot of parties. I can probably count them on my right hand. But I remember the spot to be was Lamplight Pizza, somewhere around Laguna Hills, California. And they probably only had about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 arcade games at an air hockey table. But it was definitely the place to have a birthday party.
Okay, well, I was going to say that sounds like a place that would have some pretty good pizza. How is their pizza?
It was decent.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually, that pizza place, Lamplight Pizza, actually provided the pizza for our school lunches in middle school.
Oh,
so
man.
if you were getting pizza, you were getting Lamplight Pizza.
That's pretty cool. And well, I don't know what that says because we got like Papa John's to supply ours. It's much better than Papa John's, I'm hoping.
Yeah, but that all depends on personal preference. I'm not a big hater of Papa John's.
Oh, I'm not a hater either, but I like Chicago thin crust mostly. What type of pizza are we talking here?
Just your run-of-the-mill pizza. The same that you would probably find at Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay. Well,
triangle slice, maybe about a half-inch thick.
I have a mixed opinion now because I was about to throw Chuck E. Cheese under the bus and say, it sounds like where you were going, the pizza was the priority and the arcade games were an addition. Well, obviously Chuck E. Cheese is the draw is the games.
Yeah, you could say that for sure.
You would put it better than Chuck E. Cheese pizza?
Yes, 100%.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, that's not really the highest bar, but that was the point I was trying to get to.
Gotcha.
That was a cool spot, though. What was the best game they had there? Do you remember?
The only one I can really remember was just the Golden Tee golf game.
Those were fun.
With the actual ball in the thing, so you can get everyone's germs before you go eat your pizza.
You could always wash your hands after you played, but
yeah, but when you're 11 years old, you're not too worried about that.
Didn't. Yeah, that was one of the fun aspects that I think we could talk about for a minute. The arcade provided so many different gameplay styles.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like it reminds me of how TV used to be back in the 90s, where you could just flip a channel and you might find something you like. And there was an arcade that we went to, and we would often just sit down and try a game. And if you liked it, you'd play it again some other time,
Mm-hmm.
And all those different gimmicks were fascinating too, whether it was DDR or Golden Tee, or there was a boxing game that was pretty cool. It was exhausting though. As far as games with those interesting styles of controls, did you have any particular favorites?
Yeah, one of my favorites was the I don't know if you ever went on it, but it was I can't remember the exact name, but it was the full-size skateboarding game, where you probably had maybe like a 45 or 50-inch TV in front of you.
Yeah.
And you held onto the bars on each side, and they actually had that like gyroed controlled skateboard.
Yeah, those were sweet. And there was a surfing one too, I think.
I've never played the surfing one. I didn't know that.
I had totally forgotten about those though. You're right. Those are sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And the light gun games. What was that? Like Time Crisis? Was that?
Yeah,
like
Time Crisis was
original?
probably the biggest one.
Okay.
Or at least the most traditional light gun game.
Yeah.
Because that had the aspect with the foot reloading too.
Oh yeah.
Like
dude.
you had the little pedal down underneath you.
Wow. I'm just realizing now that you could have mechanical problems with your arcade game too, like your foot pedals broken on your Time Crisis and shit. That's just wacky to me compared to the console being broken, where it's an electronics problem.
Mm-hmm. I would have to say maybe as far as trying to repair arcade games go, the driving games, especially the one with the actual motorcycle that you sat on upon, those things probably got beat to all hell.
Yeah, some games, and I think depending on the establishment, people took better or worse care of the stuff. So it was always a mixed bag. The one I went into a couple of years back, I realized there's no real incentive for them to put any money into it. But man, everything was beat to hell and the games looked like crap. I didn't want to spend a minute in there longer than I had to. So, those were pretty sweet. What was your favorite light gun game?
Area 51. No question.
Oh, yeah. You're shooting zombies or aliens?
Yeah, aliens.
That makes more sense. I'm trying to picture it, but I remember, what was the zombie one? There has to be a zombie one.
Oh, yeah. My other favorite was House of the Dead, which I'm pretty sure had more than one sequel. So
yeah, a lot of those got like updated. There's a sequel for a few of those games. Mm-hmm. Those were always sweet, though. And like those survived a long time. I remember going to, it must have been a GameWorks or Dave & Buster's for a sorority semi-formal I was invited to. Mm-hmm. And we basically put all of our money into it was one of the old ones.
Probably Time Crisis.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I've definitely seen a couple of Time Crises still out at arcades.
Still in good condition and stuff. Yeah, those... Yeah, they took good care of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Other places, not so much. Just to touch on it really quick, those did have some cool mechanics. It was really fun. Like, I was never that great, but seeing someone who is really good at the game, or if you played it with like a older cousin perhaps, and watching them just kick ass was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when they actually understood the mechanics.
Just like blasting off the screen instinctively to reload, like,
Yeah. And you always felt like such a badass when you did that too.
yeah.
Like my preferred way was to just go up. Like some people went off to the side, some people went down to reload, but I was always an up guy.
You're an up guy.
Yeah.
I think I just did what the screen told me. I was an obedient little boy for the most part. So it said shoot to the side. But, I didn't notice it until like I'd been shooting for like 2 whole seconds. I was always good at shooting the civilians in those games. I know you weren't supposed to, but boy, did I manage to blast a bunch of those away. Oops.
Did you ever play with the sniper? I don't think it was called Sniper Elite. I think it was just called Sniper, and they actually had like the scope gun mounted on.
I believe I've seen that machine, but I never got to actually play it.
Okay, you're probably lucky. I'm sure some kids probably got some type of pink eye from that thing.
Oh, gross, dude. You're right. Yeah. Just breeding grounds for all the worst bacteria. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And kids just with pizza all over their shirt and face and all that.
Coughing up all their phlegm onto the joysticks.
Sneezing and then wiping it on their hand and then slamming it on the button.
I don't think I can ever go back to the Nickelcade up here. Thanks, Peter.
Sorry about that. I was about to confess that I was that type of kid, but I didn't know better. I mean, I was just like any other kid. I didn't think about it at all. I just kind of did my thing and kept playing. Did you ever get up to any trick? Well, first, let me preface this. If you found yourself at an arcade that had prizes, were you a ticket or gameplay guy?
That's actually changed over the years. When I was a kid, I was definitely a gameplay guy, only because I thought that the ticket games you needed actual skill, and I was just a dumb kid. So why am I going to waste? Why am I going to waste the money and time on those when I could just go play games? But nowadays, it's definitely more for the tickets and more to get that inflatable dragon or shark, whatever they have up there. What about you?
That is so interesting. I have the exact opposite experience.
Weird.
I always tried so hard for the tickets as a kid, and I wouldn't say I did terribly. My brother made the funny point of trying to calculate the value of a ticket, and he's like, well, on a broad scale, you could say like, well, I went in with $20 and I won this like pencil. So, presumably.
What was the biggest prize that you either got or longed to get?
Well, longed to get, there were some pretty cool ones. I'll talk a bit about that when I talk about one of the local ones I enjoyed. But I did like this stuffed dragon enough that after winning the blue one at this one arcade, I went back and made sure to win the green one as well. And I still have those. They're in great shape.
So you can say you double dragoned it?
Yeah. Yeah. Call me. Oh, that's my ninja name. Double Dragon. There you go. Okay, perfect.
Okay,
someday
definitely.
Mine will come to you spontaneously when you reveal some interesting tidbit about the stuffed animals or breakfast cereal you used to eat or something. That was the only one that really comes to mind. But yeah, as I said, and now as I've gotten older, I realized prizes weren't worth it, or I could buy them, or things like that. But I used to love the ticket games, man. What were your favorite ticket games? Or what are they, man, since you like them now?
Well, now, I mean, it was the same as a kid, because I think skee ball is always like a good experience, just because it does take some skill. Like, it's not just tossing a ball up there. You gotta put some type of spin on it, and right speed.
I love skee ball, dude. It's super fun, and it's you can go for that high risk top corner spot if you want. If you've got the balls to spare in your rack there,
your 10,000 point up there.
Yeah.
But the only thing I didn't like about skee ball is the point to ticket ratio really wasn't there, because you always think you did well, and then like 3 tickets spit out, so you decide what's the point.
I agree. I think they knew that it could be abused by people who could master it, because I
Okay,
felt the same way. I remember hitting like 7 in the middle out of 12, and the rest were pretty good in like one corner, and I got like 8 tickets, and I was like, oh, well, that's how I always used up my spare tokens. When I was all like gamed out, I would unwind, throw in some skee balls, man. Because those have some weight to them too. It feels good to throw a skee ball.
Yeah, you can knock a person out with one for sure.
Oh yeah, it's like it's not a joke.
Yeah.
That's a surprising thing. I'm sure it's happened, but like violence with a skee ball, or like a kid threw a skee ball at another kid. I mean, an accident is one thing, but like intentionally, like, I'm curious.
I actually think that's in Kevin Smith's movie Dogma. I'm pretty sure. Spoilers. I mean, Dogma came out in '97.
I think I try and repress that one from Kevin Smith's catalog.
Dogma is a great movie.
Oh, I don't know if I would call it a great movie. It's a movie, and I laugh sometimes. But if you're comparing it to Clerks or Mallrats, it's not on the same level. I mean, Mallrats isn't a good movie either, but it's way funnier in my opinion. Better premise, but no. Dogma is blasphemous, I tell you, Toby. No, it's okay. You know, I'm just messing around. What happens in it though?
So basically, I'm pretty sure God gets killed by kids with skee balls and socks. Maybe I can't 100% remember. I think they just pelt him with skee balls down on the Jersey Shore boardwalk.
Huh? Let me consult my Bible about that. You could do some damage with the skee ball. We'll leave it at that. But that's one of the few surviving, like, I'm trying to, there was like a basketball game at Chuck E. Cheese's. I remember seeing this kid just destroy it once, and he just had this pile of tickets coming out. It was nuts. Was he just hitting 3 after 3? It wasn't that traditional one with the timer where you have a certain amount of time. It had this like extension button where if like, I think you had to hit a couple in a row and then you hit the button and it gave you a little more time, or like an extra ball would get released. That's what was the limiting factor, I believe.
Okay.
And he just was going and going, hitting swoosh after swoosh. It was, and he, I must have been 9 and he was probably 11, and he seemed like Michael Jordan to me. I don't know of many other like real physical arcade games. Can you think of other ones? I guess you can get physical with pinball. You a fan of any particular tables?
My all-time favorite table is the Simpsons Pinball. That's my go-to if I see it.
Pretty classic, yeah.
What about you?
Well, I mean, full disclosure, the most time on a pinball table I have is certainly the digital pinball table Rocket from Pinball 2000 for MS-DOS. That's some 90s for you. But no, physical. The most fun and laughs I think I ever got was the creature from the Black Lagoon, where it's like a parody.
Yeah, that's a
like
classic
a monster flick. Yeah, it's great. It was pretty fun, and it was at a this was in a particularly large hotel, and they had 3 pinball tables and a couple other games, and that was one of them that I had a lot of fun on. We were at a wrestling camp where you stayed in the hotel, and they had like mats set up in the big open areas. So all our spare time was spent either in the pool or gaming there. It was, it was kind of fun.
Definitely.
Did you have any experiences like that? I know you said the pizza parlor was your place to be. Were there any places that you could reliably know there was going to be an arcade game? Like when your mom dragged you to whatever, you're like, oh, well, at least I could get a quarter and play this.
No, it was pretty much just the pizza parlor. I never really went out of my way if we were there for a purpose to go play a game.
No, that's fair. For me, my mom was if I recall, a pretty good bowler, and she was in the league. And at Beverly Lanes by us, they always had a couple games there. So,
What's your mom's high score in bowling? Do you know off the top of your head?
I imagine it's 2 something,
Okay, so it's up there.
But they had, I think they had a pinball machine and a couple other ones. And I remember, how they had like the teaser screen that would show some gameplay or sometimes like a explanation into why all these digital avatars are like beating each other to shit.
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah, there was one that had this like king getting murdered, and I remember my brother like being like, "Shield your eyes, Peter. You can't see this. This is too violent." And I'm pretty sure it was just like a flash of red, and the guy goes from like a seated pose to like a dead pose, and that was the extent of it. But no, I don't blame him. He was looking out for me. I didn't need to see that stuff. I still don't. I don't need that violent garbage.
Speaking of violent garbage, were you into any beat 'em ups?
I'm glad you say that because your favorite pinball table was probably my most memorable arcade beat 'em up experience.
Okay.
Or at the very least, longing to play it.
Okay. Were you not allowed? Or
Well, we did have a weird thing where like I wasn't supposed to watch The Simpsons, but occasionally my dad would let me watch South Park. So that didn't quite add up, but I didn't think about it too much. But that didn't really apply to the game because, they knew we played other, like my brother and I were a big fan of Streets of Rage for our Sega Genesis, which is, a beat 'em up. And I just have a very distinct memory of, I think, being with my mom to pick up my brother from a birthday party. And, it was at an arcade, and I can picture the Simpsons game and wanting to play it so bad. And, I was just there. I wasn't there to get to play games. And I just remember really wanting to play it. And, I eventually got to and stuff. But that was really similar to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one too, right? Did you have a preference?
Yeah, Turtles in Time was my jam.
Yeah.
That whole game. I mean, I never got very far, especially if I was just playing it by myself, but just something about wailing on all those foot soldiers, man. I don't know.
Of course, I never made it far in those games either. I would just feed them quarters, but beat 'em ups were fun, and that leads me to a question. The obvious parallel would be fighting games. And did you play more often with or against your siblings or friends?
Definitely against, but
Really?
I sucked at fighting games. Yeah.
Really? Huh.
I still suck at fighter games. I'm a button masher, dude. I have no strategy.
Well, that's one part of the arcade experience that I think was fun. So I'll first say I think I did play against my friends more as a kid. I grew to prefer co-op because I don't want to fight my friends usually, I want to play together to win. Like, I think part of the thing that's lost now is, and I think, the fighting game community, not that I keep up with it, I think this is why it's grown to be its own unique movement in esports or whatever, is there was a lot of fun in that local scene. You know what I mean? And like being better than your friends or playing some rando and just beating them up or knowing the secrets that let you win. I think that's something that's just, we don't have that anymore.
Yeah, we really don't.
I certainly never had the experience like how it's portrayed in movies or TV shows where everyone was crowded around one game watching two people duke it out. But like, I remember, I traveled all over the place for wrestling, and that's how, my brother and I would be like, does it have a pool? Okay, cool. Game room? Oh, like that was huge. And, so I'd be playing kids in that, what was that dinosaur game? It was like Earth had gone backwards and reverted to prehistoric stuff, and dinosaurs were back and you fought other dinosaurs. It was a sweet game. There was one part where you had to like power up and you like ate people to power up. It was great.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
It was a lot of fun, but I remember, beating up other wrestlers and beating them in that game too,
For sure.
So yeah, that was always a different thing where it was a bit more personal. And like I said, your quarters went into it. It's not like it was free, but that local scene where there was high scores, it doesn't really matter anymore when you can just look on YouTube and see someone do a Dark Souls no-hit run and be like, oh yeah, well, I'm just trash at this game. Like there's no, that feeling is completely lost.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, something about the digital age just kind of took that whole experience away.
It's something I still wonder about because, at one point in college, my Windows file system was messed up, so I put a Linux distro on there, and the only game I could find to play before I fixed it was, well, it was an emulator. It was the MAME, the multiple arcade machine emulator. I killed a lot of time and had a lot of fun playing those arcade games. And sometimes I would play something the same way and get a different experience. And I was like, this game thinks someone put quarters in to play it. So it might throw some random unfair bullshit at you meant to take a life off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I still wonder about that in the games I play frequently. It's like, I genuinely don't know. And that's one of the interesting things. Another thing about the local scene is if you see someone do something in a let's play of a console game, you could just look up how they do it. Mm-hmm. When we were playing arcade games, dude, it was like, not only would I not have a cell phone for 6 or 7 more years at the earliest, they would be flip phones and you weren't browsing the internet for arcade game tips. And if those tips did exist, maybe they were likely behind a skyscraper of a Japanese language barrier too. So it's like, when I look up info about these games, it's like a black hole. There's just very limited stuff, and that's fascinating to me. There's such whether there's no interest nowadays or what it is, it's hard to know why that is. But I guess before we talk about more games, I don't want to forget this. So I think I want to take a moment to recognize Nolan Bushnell. He is credited as the creator of some of the first video games, but also like the first, I think it's debated if it's like the first arcade game proper, but he made one called, I think, Space Wars. That was the first commercially available one.
Okay.
And that wasn't a success. And then I actually didn't realize that Pong was an arcade game. But after he did just, those tiny things like kickstarting, the arcade industry, he went on to make 2 companies called Chuck E. Cheese's and Atari. So
okay,
I think he deserves the recognition of certified radical 90s dude.
I would agree. That title fits him well.
I hereby recognize him as such. Yeah, I don't think the 90s would have been the same, or my youth wouldn't have been the same without, I got gypped twice at Charles the Chiseler Cheese's Pizza. It just so happened that when I won the jackpot on these games, it was out of tickets. Oh, let me go refill those. Oh, I have to reset the game. Oh, you got enough already. I was like, dude, 25 tickets was not the jackpot. Like you're.
Oh yeah, and they thought they were smart pulling a fast one on a kid.
Well, there was nothing I could do about it, and the guy didn't even act smart. He was more smug. That rubbed me the wrong way. But yeah, I stayed away from that machine. It was the kitty corner from that basketball machine. You know, it was a ticket game that I really liked. I found it very addicting. I know I've won once. I think I've won twice. You know, the one that spins around and then you have to hit it. And if you hit it right in the perfect center one, you get a jackpot.
Yeah, that was your go-to.
I tried not to waste too much because I knew your odds were low. But one of the times that I won it, I do remember I was like out of tokens and I had just enough to play that once more. And I was like, oh, shit, whatever, let's go for it. And I was just like, whatever, bop. And I nailed it and I won it. And like the jackpot wasn't even that high. It was only like up to like 74 or something at that point. But I was like, yes, I thought I would go my whole life not ever winning that game, but I won it. And I was like, oh, yes.
Nice.
And cross that off the list.
What about the quarter plow games where you just keep feeding quarters and quarters in, hopefully to get that stack of quarters to fall in? I don't think I've ever gotten tickets from that game.
Well, you win more quarters. You don't get tickets. And then, I mean, I played that all the time at the fair when that came to town. That's where I would do that. And
see, I've only played them where I got tickets.
Really? How does that work?
I think I don't know if it counts the weight or something. I know at the Nickel Arcade, there's a Wizard of Oz one where you actually get you get color coded cards almost. They're like oval shaped cards of each character. And some were like 100 tickets. One was like 1,000, I think, or something like that.
I don't know how that works. That's interesting. No, for us, the fair would come to town every summer, you know, Frontier Days at Rec Park, you know. And I don't know how they got away with that, actually, because it seems like gambling to me. And I was definitely under 18 feeding as many quarters as I could into that. Maybe because there's like prizes scattered in it too. But no, you just, whatever quarters dropped were your quarters to use. And pretty legit in my book. Or maybe you had to use their tokens and that's how they made their money. You know, like you exchange it for tokens and they're the size of quarters basically, but that's how they know they're making money. And if you got enough, you can get tickets. I think it varied. I thought those were fun though, because it was a little skill there too. You were saying about weight, and that's actually why I asked that question about tickets or gameplay earlier, because I remember at some places, I think you just fed your tickets into something and it counted it. But at other places, it was a bit more simple and easy to cheat. Do you have any dirty tactics? Would you like to fess up to any?
I wish I could fess up to anything, dude. But as a kid, no, I'm not going to call myself an angel, but I don't think I ever thought of ripping off an arcade.
See, I'm hesitant to completely. I mean, first of all, this is going to happen anyways because I was just a sweaty boy. But at one place, they would just throw them in a bucket and weigh them. And I remember a kid telling me once, he was like, "Dude, get them wet or like tape something to them that makes them heavier. They just weigh them." And I looked at mine and they were all like half drenched because I was just a little sweaty boy. And I was like, I don't even think I need to do that. But there were some times when I was like, really? I had that many? Like, I'm pretty good at math. Like, pretty sure I didn't have that many, but I'm not going to complain. It wasn't like it was less.
Yeah, you got to think how much those attendants really care. Who's weighing those?
Well, that's why I wasn't sure why that guy was so smug when he ripped me off. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna let me get my like little finger topper bobber, dude. Like, why do you care?
Or my 5 Tootsie Rolls.
He was like a college age kid. Why would he care? Anyways, there were 2 near me that I remember, but there were also 2 that I have in my memories, like the one I mentioned earlier, that must have closed when I was pretty young, and it was large and had a lot of just like stand up arcade traditional cabinets, you know what I mean? And it was like
Hmm.
bright and friendly and clean. And the other one I can't recall is that one where that other no good kid was telling me how to break the rules.
Yeah.
But I had a couple birthday parties there too. That was, man, the more I think about those two, the more I really miss that experience, just running wild in an arcade.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When the first thing you see is all those lights and, hearing all those sounds. And then what about the going up to the coin machine, putting in that, Chris $1 or $5 bill, or maybe it was a little wrinkled and you had to smooth it out, on the machine itself.
That experience certainly doesn't happen as often with the, whether it's a drink machine or whatever. Usually they're a lot better. But yeah, the ching, 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 when you
Mm,
get your tokens is always exciting. And what you mentioned brings me back to what my brother had mentioned when he was calculating the value of a ticket. And it brought him to this little bit of a conspiracy path, where he was like, there's not a lot of windows and you kind of lose track of time. It's usually a bit dark. He's like, are arcades gambling for kids? I was like, that's not an unreasonable take. And all those things you said are true, but I don't think they're advertising that you're going to win the big one. It's kind of like, when you put money into a video games currency, it's one way.
yeah. I mean, I would definitely say the ticket machines are on that very thin line of gambling, because they do promise those big prizes.
And I had a good laugh about how, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but pachinko is extremely popular in Japan, and there's
Hmm.
generally no cultural stigma around gambling like there is here,
Yeah.
but there's still laws. Have you ever heard how that works?
No.
Well, you play pachinko, and I think it works like I was saying with the quarters. You just get more balls out that you would put it either in more ammo or it's your winnings. And
Okay.
then you turn them in and you get a ticket saying how well you did. And then you go to an establishment that's conveniently located like right next door. And what do you know? They exchange those tickets for cash and prizes.
Hmm.
And we had a bit of a laugh about that, but we do have our wacky things where a state can have a law that contradicts federal law, and then a city within that state has their own version of it. So it's like we might not be all that different, but it is a real quite a large loophole. I'm certain there's billions of dollars flowing through that loophole.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, that's why Konami doesn't make video games. And well, they do. They're just pachinko video games,
Just getting that dollar bill.
I mean, if it's what the people want, yeah, give it to them, I
Hmm.
guess. I don't know. I wish they definitely contribute to the 90s catalog or canon of excellent classic games. So it's a
Hmm.
shame they're not contributing there anymore. But speaking of which, what I found when I looked up pictures of arcades was you could go to some pretty cool arcades in, I think, Japan and South Korea still. Like, besides the pachinko and gambling parlors. Have you ever seen those?
No, I haven't.
I think in like in Tokyo, there's like a gaming or electronics district. I'm pretty sure you can go there and it's like legit, and I think there's still a market there. And maybe for the reason I said earlier, like not every game is available on console, or you want to
Hmm.
play it with a cool set of controls, perhaps.
Yeah. That just reminds me of the King of the Hill episode where Hank finds out he has a half brother in Japan. and Bobby finds, I think, that same district you're talking about, where he sees a girl and falls in love with her, but she's playing the pretty much Dance Dance Revolution.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah. I don't know if that district's still there or if that's the one that's been turned into a moe anime district. I'm not sure. I think that's Akihabara. Not positive on that. Either way, I still think there's arcades that are worth going to there, it seems, which I'm a
For
little
sure.
bit jealous of, and it would be fun to go out with your bros, and it would be much different than it used to be because I wouldn't, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't have a problem dropping $20 and you can play a lot of games for that, so
Hmm.
it's a bit different than when you were really restrained as a kid. But what games were you most likely to put them in? Just traditional arcade games. Let's talk about the heavy hitters, regular ones.
Okay. If you want to talk heavy hitters, I think Gauntlet is up there. A
Oh,
little bit of an
yeah.
older one,
Yeah.
but definitely just that, isometric. Would you call it a beat 'em up? I wouldn't call them a beat it up, really. It's in the same vein as Diablo. The hack and slash, I would say.
Yeah, that's what they call Diablo.
Yeah. So yeah, that hack and slash.
You walk around and kick the shit out of everything you can, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can like pick your class. So it's like the only two ones I remember is dwarf and elf and maybe warrior, I think. But yeah, there's something about that game, just like even playing it by yourself. But I mean, obviously better with a couple of your friends. Just going around and pretty much just killing everything in your path. And whenever you get a piece of food for health, the announcer would say sustenance.
Yeah, you could be the elf, wizard, Valkyrie, or warrior.
Yep.
I always enjoyed those, 3 or 4 player games where you were running around and you had to play a class. Like you all couldn't be the warrior, right?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I haven't played Gauntlet in probably 15, 20 years. So
Yeah, but I always thought that was cool and like it would be fun. I wasn't quite old enough to have any type of that experience, but where you and like a couple buddies were skilled enough to take it to an arcade title like that. But no, I definitely have some appreciation for those. That's that earlier generation of them. I'm imagining, Centipede and Dig Dug and those old school arcade games. There's a lot of classics that came out of that time. I'm surprised that it's such an old one for you that really came to mind first. What else?
yeah. Well, I wanted to say Gauntlet because that's the one that I would always first go to in the Kmart arcade in Laguna Niguel, California.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was pretty much right by the entrance. So I would always just hit that one up.
So you did have a
first
spot.
thing.
You did have a spot that you knew you could go and game at that wasn't you call it the Kmart arcade. But,
So I would say it was a full blown arcade. It was an arcade within Kmart. I wouldn't say
fair.
it was just Kmart had an arcade.
Fair.
It was like an actual full blown arcade inside the Kmart.
I take it back. Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. No, that's pretty sweet actually. I mean, that's not pretty sweet and Kmart don't often go together, but that
I loved that Kmart, man. I can't remember if I was still there when they shut it down, but I was sad to hear the news when they shut it down. So it was one of the last ones standing.
what year was it, you think?
If I wanted to say, I think it may have been mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, maybe.
Because, dude, check this, man. I was shopping at Kmart in college. We had one
Okay.
by us that, like, when I first visited, I was like, there's a Kmart so close. Are they still in business? And, like, I think it shut down, like, while I was finishing up or shortly after that. But, like, it was like,
Okay.
damn, dude, that's like, I was class of 2012. So it was like, dude, that shit really held on.
It really did.
I can't say I recall ever looking at a Gauntlet machine and playing it or saying, no, there's Gauntlet. The name sounds very familiar. I'm pretty sure the game was quite popular, but I never played
What
that
was
one.
what was your favorite?
My favorite arcade game? You'll have to give me a minute while I gush about this one, but
Okay.
I'm not even sure what to call it. I guess it's
Raiden Fighters Jetto.
but I say that because the title is Raiden Fighters Jet, which just sounds like the most egregious case of English ever. Like it should be Jet Fighters. But years later, I found out there was Raiden Fighters 2, and it's missing a colon or something there. Anyways, it didn't come out till 98.
Okay.
I would describe it as just like Rule of Cool, the game, where like nothing really matters. It's a shoot 'em up. It's a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up where you're in a jet and you blast the crap out of everything. But after like one or two power ups, your lasers cover the entire screen. It's just wild. I will be throwing some footage up on screen. Like you saw earlier, it's just an awesome visual spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
I love the bitmap looking explosions. Like it's just an actual video of an explosion superimposed on these graphics.
Yeah, definitely.
It looks like nothing else, and the game feel is just all there.
For sure, a little rewarding.
My buddy Adam was also super into it.
Uh-huh.
There were two arcades that we went to. One was called Just for Fun, and it was in Town and Country Mall. I think that I was still little when that mall shut down. So like I had limited experiences there, but you asked about cool prizes before. That one had all these sweet light toys, anything that would work well in a fog machine.
Okay.
So things like that. So those were probably the coolest prizes I ever saw
Yeah.
at an arcade. But then at the other arcade we went to, my buddies and I were going there in middle school and spending our actual money that we could be spending on girls or going to movies or stuff on those games. And the reason I'm still playing it to this day is because, as I mentioned, it's a complete enigma as far as real info. You can find some of the secrets or watch someone play the game, but even yesterday, I figured out a new secret. Like, oh, if I quick shot this enemy, that makes this spawn, which gives me enough medals to unlock the next mode. I think it illustrates how I've changed in gaming. When I used to play it in the arcade, it was just surviving as long as you could, and this whole mystery of unlocking this next mode that none of my friends had an appreciation for, but I knew was the key to progressing in the game.
Mm-hmm.
In college, when I played it again, it was on emulator, so I was like, well, let's just see what this whole game is. Let's play through the whole thing. And, that is not really that satisfying. It was interesting to see. Now I'm all about getting the highest score I can in one credit. So it's just one day I will beat the game on one credit. It might take a while, but I think I'll get there. And one of the most fun parts about playing it at home, I'll be capturing my footage and I'll say, I swear it's been an hour and a half, and it'll have been like 25 minutes.
Okay.
The game's so intense. You just stop, and I have a timer telling me I've only been recording for 25 minutes. So I'm like, what the hell?
Gotcha. It just took all your focus pretty much.
It felt like the first time I was drinking or something. It was nuts. That's me gushing about my favorite game, and it's not like it's a totally forgotten title, because there was, I heard they had Raiden 5, and you can buy the Raiden Legacy Collection and get it on your computer, which I have, but I like the emulator better.
Okay.
I don't mess with people cheat and use the slave and stuff because you have a smaller hitbox. None of that garbage. You play with the Ixion, and that's it. And because it shoots purple lasers, obviously. So,
okay.
That's the whole point. Shoot purple lasers. So, the visuals, like the bombs and the explosions, just I find endlessly satisfying. And the fact that there's still tricks that I don't know and can't find and will only find by me playing it makes it unlike any other game, you know?
For sure.
So it's just something I have a lot of strong memories tied to. And even looking it up online, it was a bit difficult to find pictures of the cabinet as I remembered it. But it turns out I was looking in the wrong place, because the people that embrace these old games also embrace the old internet, where it's just regular forums.
Okay.
Because I couldn't find stuff on eBay, but I found like 6 listings on this, arcade enthusiasts forum. So
Gotcha.
I kind of liked that. It made me feel, I was like, all right, these people get it. Yeah.
Would you ever procure one of these cabinets
That would take a lot.
if money permitted?
See that? Well, if money wasn't an object, of course, yeah, I would buy one. But I mean, if you've never seen my music setup, I have a vertically oriented screen, and when I'm particularly in the zone, I have hooked that up to play Raiden on that, because that's how it's like supposed to be played,
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
so I don't feel I need that. I have suggested to one of my good friends that we build a horizontal monitor using a Raspberry Pi to run MAME, and just all it has on there is a couple arcade games, and it's just dedicated to running that. That would be less cost prohibitive, and you'd learn something, and you could customize it, and it wouldn't be the size of a refrigerator. So
Okay.
how about
Yeah,
you? Would
definitely.
you want to own any, or did you know anyone that's owned one?
Actually, yes. And it was my friend's uncle. It did not work, but it was a Mortal Kombat 2
Well, that's a pretty
cabinet.
sweet game.
And they had it in their garage. Yeah, they had it in their garage, and I remember I was like, man, you could just buy those? I didn't know that. But other than that, I think we had one other friend who later in like the early 2000s had the actual, MAME cabinet, where it was a consumer product that had the computer screen in it. And like it was pretty much Windows, and you could just scroll and pick your game and play it.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. It's running an emulator, but it looks like an arcade cabinet.
Like it was a
and
legit
controls
like
one.
I'm
That's
not going to
sweet.
say licensed cabinet, but like it was
I know what you mean from looking. They're like, I don't know how to say it, legit products. Like
it was a legit product, though it had Windows like pretty much on it.
Yeah,
so.
it's just, I mean, but I would prefer that. I remember with our broken printers at where, I was thrilled when I shut down their software and saw Windows desktop. I was like, oh, thank God, something I can work with, not fucking Markham Image. Jeez.
Did you know anybody with an arcade cabinet?
Yeah, actually, I did. He was a buddy. I don't think we ever just hung out. It was always with a mutual friend. And his dad in the basement had a Ms. Pac-Man machine. So that was pretty sweet. And, as far as games to have, that's pretty, can't go wrong there. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's all I can remember. I always was jealous when I played The Sims that they could just buy a pinball table like that. I was like, damn, dude, I want a pinball table. That'd be cool. What do you think were the biggest cultural movers and shakers when it came to arcade games? Because I got a couple in mind. I'm curious what you think.
So everyone's going to think of the obvious answer, Pac-Man, but I actually think Space Invaders was the bigger one, only because I remember my dad talking about Space Invaders all the time, and my dad did not, I wouldn't say he didn't like video games, but he didn't play video games. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Remembering him looking back fondly on that game, I think it kind of reached that audience.
It always says something when someone who's not into something is like, no, that's legit. There's been a couple experiences with my dad where he like, I thought he overall disapproved of something, but then he'll mention one thing. He's like, oh, no, that's good. And I'm like, oh, considering your other opinion of similar things, it must be actually great then, like, so
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. Yeah. To relate, it was surprising seeing my uncle tear up Centipede at the Santa Cruz arcade when I was on vacation as a young lad. And I mean, it makes sense. My uncle was significantly younger than my dad, so he was raised more in that computer generation and grew up doing electronic stuff. So he was at that
for sure.
age for it. But you referenced a little earlier than I expected. The first thing that pops into my head is Street Fighter 2.
Okay.
As far as our time period in the arcade and video game world, which I admittedly played it far more at home because it was free once you bought it. But there was definitely competition surrounding that machine.
Who'd you roll with in Street Fighter 2? What was your main character?
Can't recall the name of Dulcim.
Okay.
Dulcim. He was cheap though, so like my brother and I put a moratorium on him, or he would pick him and just abuse it. He could beat me with anyone pretty much because he's my older brother. But
we all know that
he would do that and relentlessly torment me with his long punch. No, I think I preferred playing as just Ryu or Ken, or sometimes Chun-Li. I always liked playing as Chun-Li or Sonya when I could, because playing as the girl and beating up the dude just felt good. Felt an extra layer of punishment or embarrassment to put on your opponent. How about you? Who are your favorite Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat characters?
Street Fighter, definitely Blanca. Just that
good choice.
Just that floor style and that radioactive green skin, man. I don't know. There's just something about it.
He was pretty. I found him a little bit disturbing as a child, but
really,
I think I preferred the straight karate style. And before you move on to your Mortal Kombat character, just let me shout out Guile's theme is just one of the bangingest old school themes out there. Moving on, Mortal Kombat.
It's got to be Scorpion. I like Sub-Zero, and like Reptile was pretty cool.
See, yeah, I wouldn't say Sonya was my favorite. It would definitely, as far as like, that's kind of what I was saying, like the local scene. If I wanted to beat someone or put up a good fight, I would definitely be playing Scorpion or Sub-Zero because I knew their moves. And plus, I love the design. I mean, it's obviously like a timeless ninja design. And I loved the Mortal Kombat games. I loved that bitmap style. Not to say the animation in Street Fighter isn't super awesome. It is. But that really made me think, what you mentioned earlier, TMNT, The Simpsons, Mortal Kombat, the Cruisin' USA or World, those all had to be American games, right? Or no, Street Fighter's Capcom, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense why it's really good animation. And all those other games are American where we used like bitmap, or I don't think anyone was writing home about their journey on Cruisin' World, the graphics there. But I didn't really think about that much. I don't know how big the divide was, because in my youth, for consoles, most of the games I wanted were Japanese. And I didn't even know it at the time, but it just turned out that I played RPGs a lot. Plus, if you played Mario and Sonic, you were playing Japanese games. So I'm just thinking out loud. I just think that's interesting. I mean, I wonder, maybe there's some thread there that explains why they survived in Japan and not here. I know they're very protective of intellectual property compared to here.
That's a good thought. Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought of that. I would have just went to the easy answer of just the cultural difference. Maybe that that gathering, is still just something sought after.
Which is funny because there's like, I hope nothing I say here sounds insensitive, but I feel there's conflicting stereotypes about the, what is it, hikikomori, the shut-ins, but then you hear about people gathering outside their work and how integral it is to business life that you meet with associates and you go to bars and stuff. So I really don't know what the truth of the matter is, if there's individualism is valued or if they do still place a higher value on that, which I would say they're very wise to still value that sentiment since we seem to have given that up. But yeah, I don't know. That does make more sense, but I do wonder if there's something under the surface with the games themselves, the developers, or just the public kept paying arcades. They just kept giving them money, so they just kept going on, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the easiest explanation. Speaking of that, I did think it was interesting. When I looked up, it was called Time Out.
Okay.
Was the one that I went to at Randhurst Mall. And just two interesting facts about that. For one thing, a place I used to live, Bensonville, is where Namco USA is based, I guess, or whatever it is. I thought that was weird. But also Randhurst in Mount Prospect was one of, if not the first mall proper in the United States, where you went in and walked around and the shops faced inside this pavilion or whatever you want to call it, So that was interesting. But when I looked up that mall, guess what year it opened? If we're talking how we lived through the decline of arcades, when do you think they were opening a new arcade?
80s? I'm not sure.
1999.
99, eh?
Yeah, and the reason I bring up the money is this is a quote from the article where it was titled "Game Company Scores Permit to Open Arcade at Randhurst." What a skilled pun from that journalist. Keep them on staff. It says, quote, "Village approval of the Randhurst Arcade came with the condition that an adult attendant be on duty at all times. The village also reserved the right to require extra security if police notice an increase in the number of calls to the game room," end quote. So does that indicate anything to you? Can you pick up some of the subtext there, Toby?
No, not really. Just rowdy kids to me. But
well, okay. I was going to say, yeah, it's viewed as a potential problem. And to be fair, we definitely caused problems at the mall, but we were paying customers too. So we had a right to be there. Dang it. But what I even see is apparently they were just money printers. Because how many people did you need it? I guess you needed a tech and a chef and a bunch of college kids working at Chuck E. Cheese. But at a regular arcade, they didn't even want to have an attendant on duty.
okay.
So it's just a money printer. It just sits there, and occasionally you fix a machine. I didn't realize that. It must have been super lucrative for some of these people that just owned functioning arcades and had limited issues. After your initial investment, you just let the money pour in and pay no employees, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. The bottom line of that turnkey operation, I mean, especially when people didn't even think about that back in the days, like, why are we going to need an attendant here? Like,
that's what I picked up, saying, they had to require them to have an attendant. So I'm guessing the assumption was they planned to not have one. So I just thought that was interesting. So
it is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who would have thought that you needed a permit just to open up an arcade?
The other one definitely had a couple more adults, and like the party spots had more employees, but I do remember it being relatively empty as far as customers and attendance at Time Out. So it was
Gotcha.
A lot of other arcade things that were popular back in the day that I remember seeing people talk about, or from when you run into kids from other states, you've never heard of Aladdin's Castle or stuff, but like that and Cyber Station and Wonder Park and Spaceport and Time Out were all owned by Namco, the Bensonville company. So I thought, so they operated 300 arcades in malls at some point.
Crazy.
Yeah, I can't even fathom that. Like,
what's the weight of those quarters?
oh man. So it's not like they're totally gone though, you know? It's
yeah, you can say they're not gone, but that feeling is gone.
Yes.
I would say. I mean, I don't know if that's just me talking as an adult now, but
that's kind of what I was getting at. I'm not sure why. I had a couple theories, but GameWorks and Dave and Buster's, I don't know if GameWorks is still around, but Dave and Buster's still seems to have clientele. How did they manage to keep a functioning arcade while all the other ones went away? Is it solely the incorporation of a restaurant? Because I think it's something else.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question because they do work so well. And I don't think it was solely just because of the restaurant. And I just think they know their market well. And their market is us for the most part.
Yeah.
Who are now legal adult beer drinking
humans. I was going to say, keep putting all the pieces together. You got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but that's the thing. And I think Dave and Buster's knows how to balance the gaming and the drinking and the food.
Yes. See, what my brother and I kind of discussed is that who as a 30-year-old goes somewhere just to game? Well, I would, but if you got your group of 3 couples and said you're going to go somewhere and game, they would probably not understand what you were talking about. When you add in drinking and a restaurant, all of a sudden it caters to all these interests. And, you know, I had a blast with all those sorority girls that were getting real drunk and we're playing all these wild games. They're falling off the skateboards and stuff. That is a real fun time, you know? Like, so yeah, I think it takes away that stigma. Otherwise, some of the barcades I've seen just don't seem to have the feeling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't. And like I said, it all comes down to that balance because they're a bar first.
Well put. No, I didn't know how to say it. I think that's why I have that sentiment. And I was going to say, like, if you're offering me craft beers and I can't just say I want a beer and I get what you have, I think that's like the difference, you know?
Yeah.
I think you're right. The barcade puts the bar aspect first, literally and figuratively.
Well, shout out to the Emporium in Wicker Park, only because of their pinball selection. I think you can see it from the street. I think they have a good like 12, 13 pinball tables lined up against the wall.
That's the one that my buddies, who I trust their judgment, at least on this matter, I trust them to vouch for this location, and they've said, no, it's legit. So I can't speak ill of Emporium. It seems like a pretty legit spot. So I'm with you there. Yeah, I would love to have that same experience. I keep reading over the years where they say it's going to come back. When I did a Google search for arcade making a comeback, there's results from 2012, 13, 17. There's even one from 2019 that says arcade businesses set for revival, industry insiders say. And like, I remember, did you ever hear of I think it was called Killer Queen, the arcade game?
No.
I think that was about 10 years back now. I think it had like 10 players too, but it was trying to like cultivate a big gameplay atmosphere. It had really simplified controls and visuals and mechanics to make it competitive. And like, it certainly had a scene. Like I've seen YouTube footage with commentary where people are like, oh, what a kill, blah, blah, blah. You know, so it's like, obviously there was a scene, but I don't ever see it feeling the same as where you had to go to the arcade to play Raiden Jet Fighters or DDR rather than just roll out your mats and get all sweaty at home and then...
Yeah. Well, I would say that, I mean, with all that's happened in the last 2 years, I don't think arcades will be making a comeback.
That's a good point too. And
At least not in the capacity that they once were.
yeah, and also it goes back to what I was saying, like everything's public knowledge now. There was no, if a game's popular enough that you're looking it up online, there's, in today's world, someone's probably written an article about how to uncover all the different secrets or whatever, you know?
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
I don't really ever see it making a big comeback, and you're right. It's us that want to relive our memories that are frequenting these.
Hmm.
Well, I was about to say that might not be true, but the generation, because I was a little kid and Dave and Buster's was around, but they also, the people that were our age at that time grew up through that first generation of arcade games, you know?
Yeah.
So that's fair. But what else do you miss about the arcade?
I just miss that excitement, you know? Like I said, when you just kind of first step in and you see everything,
Yeah.
figuring out which cabinet to go up to first or which game to hit first, you know? I don't know. That's just lost forever.
It never's gonna be like that, or just picturing and knowing exactly where you're gonna sit. And I always like to think of a goofy word if I made the top high scores. I never got I never got as much of a laugh out of putting like ass or anything.
Ass was the go-to for sure.
It's too easy. I would put something like egg or bun, and I wanted someone to really think, like, does someone really have the initials egg? Like that's fun. That's way funnier to me. But anyways, yeah. I don't know if we'll ever have it back, but it sure felt good to talk about it and think about it. And man, I lost a couple hours this weekend playing some riding, so I don't regret a moment of it.
You can say what you want about the world today, but what if arcades did survive?
Well, I'd be happy about it. You know, it's not like we're worse off having to pay once for unlimited access of our games, you know, like
Yeah, but the degradation of
there's
the social
exactly
aspect
that is the
washed away.
big thing. Yeah. So if we had to speculate, what would I'm no businessman, and I know I don't think you have your MBA either. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what would you do if you had to revitalize an arcade business, or someone was saying, I'm opening an arcade, what could I do to help guarantee success? What do you think would make a difference to this generation, you know, besides drinking and having a clean environment and stuff? Anything come to mind?
That is a good question. And I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Besides the drinking aspect,
Ooh.
there's just not really a whole lot that you can do to kind of separate it, unless you throw some strippers in there, maybe.
I got an idea, and this might kill your customer base or the people who it does attract. They're gonna love it. Check your cell phone at the door.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No cell phones allowed. I kind of like that, and the cool people will know that you don't just talk openly about whatever cool arcade this is. Oh yeah, you tell all your friends about it. What games do they have? I don't know. Go check it out. You know, yeah, it's pretty cool though. That would be a good environment, I think.
That would be, and you wouldn't be able to talk. You wouldn't be able to take a picture of your high score. It would just have to be either on the screen or Stuff of Legends. So
yeah, you would have to depend on word of mouth or proof, you know, of multiple witnesses, and hopefully you have more than your rival from the block over who says he holds the Mortal Kombat high score. It's like, no, it's me. You want to fight in Mortal Kombat about it?
You want to fight, ass? Huh?
Yeah. I'm ass. Who are you, bib? Yeah. No, that I think you would have to do something like that, and yeah, that could kill your clientele. People should be able to go back to that, though. I remember saying, I'm going to be here at this time, meet me there. But that just about wraps it up for our talk about what it was like when arcades were on every other corner, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to us reminisce about the arcade experience. Make sure to check back in with us next Tuesday, where we will be discussing one of the original Nicktoons, Doug, with pork chop, patty mayonnaise, and my personal favorite, Roger Klotz. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at RaisedByThe90s. Have a good one.
See ya.